The flower that broke the stone. Imagine a city that the world has forgotten, a place where the sky always seems painted in shades of charcoal and exhaust. Subscribe to our channel, the English Mindcast, to hear new stories and stay tuned. The factories closed their doors long ago, leaving behind rusted skeletons of steel that groaned against the gray horizon. In this neighborhood, hope was a scarce commodity. People walked with their heads down, eyes fixed on the cracked pavement, too tired to look up. This is where Elias lived. At 75, Elias was cut from the same rough cloth as his city. 40 years in the steel mills had permanently bent his spine and turned his hands into sandpaper. But while his body was tired, his spirit held a strange, stubborn resolve. Every afternoon, Elias performed a ritual that baffled his neighbors. He didn't go to a park or community garden. Instead, he walked the broken middle of the streets, hunting for cracks. Wherever the asphalt had split open from neglect, Elias would stop, groaning as his old knees hit the hard stone. He would pull a handful of dark soil from his coat pocket, pack it into the jagged wound of the street, bury a single sunflower seed, and give it a splash of water. The teenagers on the corner would laugh, shouting, "Hey, old man, you farming for rocks?" Elias never answered. He just kept planting, one seed at a time, in the ugliest places he could find. One sweltering afternoon, the collision of two very different worlds took place on that gray street. A gleaming silver luxury sedan got stuck in a detour right next to where Elias was working. Inside was Mike, young, wealthy, highly stressed, and very late. Mike drummed his fingers impatiently on the leather steering wheel, looking out the window to see Elias on his hands and knees near the car's front tire, carefully tending to a pothole. The contrast was too much for Mike. He rolled down the window, letting a blast of expensive air conditioning escape into the hot, dusty street. "Hey, old-timer," Mike shouted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "What are you even doing? You're wasting your time. That's concrete. Nothing beautiful grows in a toxic mess like this, and even if it sprouts, a car is just going to crush it." Elias slowly finished watering the spot. He used the hood of Mike's shiny car to steady himself as he stood up, dusting off his warm trousers. He looked through the window with eyes that were surprisingly clear and calm. "Son," Elias said, his voice sounding like gravel crunching under tires, "I bet you have a garden at home. I bet it's beautiful. Soft soil, expensive fertilizer, perfect water. Things grow there because they're allowed to grow." Elias pointed a shaking finger down at the seed buried in the asphalt. "But this seed, it has no gardener. It has to fight the stone just to see the sun. It has to drink oil and exhaust. It doesn't have soft soil. It only has the will to survive." Mike turned off his engine as the traffic remained at a standstill. Elias leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You see, true beauty isn't about blooming where it's easy. It's about blooming where it's impossible. I'm planting proof for the people in these houses. They feel buried under the weight of this city. But if they can walk out one morning and see a bright yellow sunflower pushing apart a slab of concrete, maybe they'll realize they can break through their heavy situations too. The flower that breaks the stone is stronger than the flower in the greenhouse. Its roots aren't deep in the earth. They're anchored in pure grit." Mike didn't have an answer. When the traffic finally cleared, he drove away in silence, but the old man's words echoed in the quiet of his expensive car. Months passed. The brutal summer heat beat down, followed by heavy storms, but Elias kept tending his cracks, and then the gray street began to change. 6 months later, Mike found himself driving that same road. He slowed down, stunned by what he saw. Down the middle line of the broken street, defiant ribbons of bright yellow sunflowers had burst through the pavement. They weren't perfect. They were scarred, some were crooked, but they were gloriously alive. The street felt different. There was a sense of pride that hadn't been there before. Mike realized in that moment that he had been blooming in a greenhouse his whole life, terrified of a little cold weather, while Elias was teaching the world how to survive an ice age. So I have to ask you, where are you planted right now? Are you waiting for the perfect conditions? Are you complaining that the soil is too rocky or the environment is too harsh? Stop waiting for the greenhouse. We live in a world of concrete, and there will always be heavy stones trying to keep you down. Be like Elias's sunflowers. Don't ask for an easier life. Build stronger roots. If you feel buried by your circumstances today, remember this. Perhaps you haven't been buried in a grave. Perhaps you've just been planted. Push against the stone, break the concrete, and bloom.